Check the account again. My name is Ivan. I'm 42 years old and I've been working oil consulting contracts in Kuwait for the past 8 months. The text came through at 3 in the morning local time while I was finishing up equipment inspections at the drilling site. Patricia had sent it at 7 p.m. Dallas time, right when she knew I'd be wrapping up my shift. The message before that one still burned on my screen. I'm leaving you for someone younger and taking everything. Enjoy being alone and broke. I stared at those words for a long minute standing under the harsh floodlights of the oil platform. 20 years of marriage, and this was how she chose to end it. Not a phone call. Not even waiting until I got home next month. Just a text message and a cleaned-out bank account. My hands didn't shake when I typed back those 4 words. I'd been expecting something like this for months. The signs had been there. The way she avoided my video calls, how she'd grown distant during my last home rotation, the subtle changes in how she talked about money and our future. Patricia had always been impatient with my work schedule, but lately, she'd grown openly resentful. I walked back to my trailer and pulled up our joint account on my phone. Empty. All $40,000 gone. She'd transferred it out that afternoon while I was underground checking pressure readings. The timing wasn't coincidental. She knew my work schedule better than anyone. What Patricia didn't know was that $40,000 was just the household account, the money I used to pay our mortgage, utilities, and credit cards. The account I'd set up specifically to handle domestic expenses while keeping my business operations separate. I opened my laptop and logged into Veltri Dynamics, the limited liability company I'd established 3 years ago. The business account showed $297,000 in retained earnings, plus another $150,000 in equipment assets and active contracts. Money Patricia had never seen on any statements because it lived in a completely different world from our personal finances. My phone buzzed, then buzzed again, then started ringing. Patricia was calling. I let it go to voicemail and watched the missed call count climb. By the time I showered and grabbed dinner, she'd called 17 times. The desperation in that pattern told me she'd finally looked at the joint account balance. The overdraft fees had started hitting. I'd met Patricia 22 years ago at an engineering conference in Houston. She was working administrative support for a petrochemical company, and I was a junior field engineer trying to make a name for myself. Back then, I thought her fascination with my career prospects was genuine interest in the work itself. The early years were good. I climbed the ladder from field engineer to project manager to operations director, and Patricia enjoyed the steady progression of salary increases and better company benefits. We bought a house in Plano, took vacations to Colorado and Florida, talked about starting a family that never quite materialized. When I decided to go independent 5 years ago, Patricia supported the decision publicly but questioned it privately. Why leave a steady paycheck for all this uncertainty? She'd ask whenever a contract negotiation dragged on longer than expected. The questions became more pointed when I started taking overseas assignments. "You're gone 6 months at a time," she'd say. "What's the point of being married if I never see you?" I understood her frustration, but the overseas work paid 3 times what domestic contracts offered. A single 8-month rotation in Kuwait or Saudi Arabia earned what took 2 years to make stateside. The plan was simple. Work hard now, build up the business, and transition to domestic consulting within 5 years. That's when I started noticing the warning signs. Patricia had always handled our personal finances, but she'd grown increasingly interested in the business side. She'd ask about contract values, profit margins, and cash flow in ways that felt more calculating than conversational. When I'd explain that business money stayed in business accounts, she'd get frustrated. "We're married," she'd say. "What's yours is mine, right?" I'd started keeping the corporate structure deliberately separate after a conversation with my attorney 3 years ago. He'd seen too many successful contractors get wiped out in divorce proceedings because they'd mixed personal and business assets. "Your wife seems nice," he'd told me over lunch, "but 20% of marriages end in divorce, and that percentage goes up when there's serious money involved. Protect yourself." So I did. Veltri Dynamics became its own entity, with its own bank accounts, its own credit lines, and its own legal protections. Patricia knew I had the company, but she'd never shown interest in the paperwork or the business bank statements. Last Christmas, I'd overheard her on the phone with her sister. "Ivan's doing well," she'd said. "The overseas work is paying off. We'll have options soon." The way she'd said options had stuck with me for months. Now I knew what she'd meant. The 57th missed call came at dawn. I was sitting on the platform's observation deck, watching the sun come up over the Kuwaiti desert, when Patricia finally left a voicemail that wasn't just angry breathing or muffled crying. "Ivan, pick up the phone. There's been a mistake with the bank account. The automatic payments are bouncing and I'm getting overdraft fees. I don't understand what's happening." A mistake. That's what she was calling it. I opened my laptop and pulled up the joint account transaction history. Patricia had transferred the full balance to a new account at a different bank on Tuesday afternoon. The account number wasn't one I recognized, which meant she'd opened it without telling me. But she'd left all the automatic payments active: mortgage, utilities, insurance premiums, credit card minimum payments. When those payments tried to process on Thursday and Friday, they'd found an empty account. Each bounced payment triggered a $35 overdraft fee. By my count, she owed the bank $420 in fees alone, plus whatever penalties the creditors would add for returned payments. The beautiful irony was that Patricia had stolen the exact money needed to pay our bills, then acted surprised when stealing it created financial problems. But the real revelation came when I scrolled through her text messages from earlier in the week. The pattern told the whole story. Tuesday morning, normal texts about my work schedule and when I'd be home. Tuesday afternoon, sudden silence. Wednesday evening, the breakup text and account raid. Thursday morning, the first frantic calls. She'd spent Tuesday researching how to access the joint account from her laptop. I could see the login attempts in the bank's security logs. Multiple failed attempts followed by successful transfers. This hadn't been an emotional decision or a spontaneous betrayal. This had been planned. What Patricia hadn't planned for was the corporate structure that kept my real assets completely separate from our household money. She'd executed a perfect heist of $40,000 in bill-paying money while missing the $300,000 sitting in business accounts she couldn't touch. I called my attorney in Dallas. "Ivan, I've been expecting this call for 2 years," he said when I explained the situation. "Your wife just learned the difference between personal and business assets the hard way." "What's my exposure here?" "None. Veltri Dynamics is a legally separate entity. She can't touch business assets in a divorce proceeding unless she can prove you fraudulently transferred marital assets to avoid community property laws. Since you established the company and its accounts before any marital problems became apparent, you're protected." I looked out at the drilling platform, at the men working 12-hour shifts in 100-degree heat to extract wealth from the desert floor. Honest work. Hard work. What about the joint account theft? That's a different conversation, and probably a criminal matter. For the first time in days, I smiled. When I finally called Patricia back, it was through the company's legal department. "Mr. Kellerman cannot speak with you directly due to the ongoing legal implications of your unauthorized withdrawal from joint accounts," my attorney's assistant explained to her. "All communication must go through counsel." Patricia lost her mind. "Legal implications? He's my husband. I have every right to that money." The assistant, bless her professional training, stayed calm. "Ma'am, removing funds from joint accounts while leaving active automatic payments constitutes check fraud under Texas statutes. The bank has already filed a report with law enforcement regarding the returned payments." I was listening to the call from my trailer in Kuwait, connected through an encrypted conference line. Hearing Patricia's voice crack with panic felt like justice, but I wasn't done yet. "I want to speak to Ivan right now," Patricia demanded. "Mr. Kellerman is currently overseas on business. His legal representative will handle all matters related to the joint account theft and the resulting fraud charges." "Theft? Fraud charges? Are you people insane? It's my money too." "Ma'am, accessing joint funds while deliberately leaving automatic obligations unpaid demonstrates intent to defraud creditors. The bank's fraud prevention department has already notified the companies whose payments were returned." That's when Patricia made her first critical error. "Those aren't my payments. Ivan handles all the bills. I don't know what gets paid when." The assistant took careful notes. Patricia had just admitted to taking money she knew was designated for household expenses, while claiming ignorance about the financial obligations that money was meant to cover. In legal terms, she'd confessed to willful theft of funds designated for specific purposes. "I understand your position, ma'am. Mr. Kellerman's attorney will need to review whether filing criminal charges is appropriate, given your admission that you took money intended for bill payments while claiming ignorance of those payment obligations." The line went quiet for 30 seconds. Criminal charges? Theft of funds designated for specific obligations, particularly when it results in returned payments to multiple creditors, can constitute wire fraud under federal statutes. The FBI handles cases involving electronic transfers that cross state lines. I almost felt sorry for Patricia in that moment. Almost. "What do you want from me?" she whispered. "Mr. Kellerman's position is simple. Return the stolen funds immediately, cover all overdraft fees and penalties resulting from your actions, and agree to dissolve the marriage through mediation rather than contested divorce proceedings." "I can't return the money." "Why not?" I've already spent some of it." The assistant looked at her legal pad where she'd been tracking every word of the conversation. Patricia had just admitted to spending money she'd stolen from joint accounts, while knowing it was designated for bill payments. "How much remains?" "Maybe $15,000. Patricia had blown through $25,000 in less than a week. My attorney had warned me this might happen. Revenge spending was common in divorce situations, especially when people felt entitled to money they were about to lose access to. "Ma'am, Mr. Kellerman's attorney will need a complete accounting of how marital funds were spent. This includes receipts, transaction records, and explanations for all expenditures." "This is harassment," Patricia snapped. "No, ma'am. This is documentation for potential criminal charges. If you've spent marital funds on items or activities that don't benefit the marriage, that constitutes waste of marital assets under Texas family law. Combined with the theft charges, you could face significant legal exposure." After she hung up, my attorney got back on the line. "She's panicking," he said, "but she's also made several admissions that strengthen your position significantly. The question now is whether she's smart enough to realize how much trouble she's in." "What about her boyfriend?" "What about him?" "She mentioned leaving me for someone younger. Odds are good she spent some of that money on him." My attorney was quiet for a moment. "Ivan, if she spent marital funds on her affair partner, that's adultery combined with waste of marital assets. In Texas, that's grounds for a fault-based divorce that could cost her significantly." "Meaning?" "Meaning she might not get anything at all." The private investigator's report arrived 2 days later. Patricia had been having an affair for 8 months with a 29-year-old personal trainer named Derek Collins. They'd met at the gym she joined after I took the Kuwait contract, and the relationship had progressed quickly from workout sessions to hotel meetings to weekend trips while I was overseas. The financial records told the real story. Patricia had spent $4,000 at Victoria's Secret and Nordstrom in the past month, another $3,000 on a weekend trip to San Antonio, including a luxury hotel suite and expensive dinners. She'd purchased a new iPhone, a laptop, and what appeared to be a very expensive watch based on the jewelry store receipt. Derek Collins wasn't just her affair partner, he was her exit strategy. According to the investigator, Patricia had been telling people at the gym that she was about to come into a significant sum of money through her divorce. She'd bragged about her husband's overseas contracts and how much money he was making. Derek had apparently been very interested in those financial details. "Your wife believed she was leaving you for a wealthy lifestyle," the investigator explained over our video call. "She told multiple people she'd have access to hundreds of thousands in divorce settlement money." "Based on what?" "Based on her assumption that your business income was marital property. She'd been researching Texas community property laws and believed she was entitled to half of everything you've earned." The investigator pulled up photographs taken outside Derek's apartment, Patricia's car in the visitor parking spot. The two of them coming and going at all hours. Patricia carrying shopping bags and looking happy in ways I hadn't seen in years. "They've been planning this for months," he continued. "Derek quit his job at the gym 2 weeks ago. He told people he wouldn't need to work much longer because his girlfriend was about to get divorced and receive a large settlement. I stared at the photos, feeling something between anger and amusement. Patricia hadn't just betrayed our marriage. She'd convinced her boyfriend that she was about to become wealthy, and he'd quit his job in anticipation of living off money she couldn't actually access. "There's more," the investigator said. "Derek Collins has significant debts, credit cards, a car loan he's behind on, and he owes money to some people who aren't banks." "What kind of people?" "The kind who expect to be paid on time." The picture became clearer. Derek had seen Patricia as his financial salvation, and Patricia had seen Derek as her escape from a marriage she'd grown tired of. Both of them had been planning to live off my business assets without understanding that business assets weren't marital property. Do they know about the business account structure? Based on our surveillance, no. Patricia believes she took your savings, and Derek believes she has access to hundreds of thousands more through the divorce. I almost laughed. Patricia had stolen $40,000 she thought was pocket change, while promising her boyfriend access to $300,000 she couldn't legally touch. Meanwhile, Derek had quit his job and was expecting to be supported by money that didn't exist. What happens when they figure it out? Based on Derek's financial situation and the people he owes money to, I'd say that's going to be an unpleasant conversation. I thanked the investigator and closed the laptop. Outside my trailer, the oil platform hummed with activity. Men working honest jobs, earning honest money, building something real instead of planning to steal from people who trusted them. Patricia and Derek had built their future on fraud and theft. In about 48 hours, when my attorney filed the divorce papers and the criminal charges, they'd discover exactly what that future actually looked like. The criminal charges hit first. I was in a production meeting when my attorney called to report that the Dallas County District Attorney had filed felony theft charges against Patricia. The combination of the joint account theft, check fraud from the bounced payments, and wire fraud from the electronic transfers had caught the attention of both local and federal prosecutors. "She's been arrested," he told me. "When?" "This morning. They picked her up at the apartment she's been staying at. Turns out it belongs to her boyfriend." Derek Collins was about to learn that his sugar mama was a criminal defendant facing federal charges. The timing couldn't have been better. Patricia had been telling everyone that her divorce settlement was going to make her wealthy. Now she was in jail, unable to post the $15,000 bond because she'd spent the money she'd stolen. What about the boyfriend? That's where it gets interesting. The apartment where she's been staying is in Derek Collins' name, but he's 3 months behind on rent. The landlord filed eviction papers yesterday. I did the math. Derek had quit his job expecting to live off Patricia's divorce money. Patricia had been arrested for stealing money she thought was insignificant. Derek was about to be evicted from an apartment he couldn't afford, and Patricia was in jail, unable to help him. Has he tried to post her bond? He doesn't have $15,000. According to the jail records, no one has called about her bail except her sister, who hung up when she heard the amount. The justice felt clean and precise. Patricia had betrayed me for a man who couldn't even afford to get her out of jail. She'd stolen money to fund a relationship with someone who was financially desperate, and now both of them were facing the consequences of choices built on lies and theft. What's our next move? The divorce papers are being served this afternoon. Since she's in custody, service will be handled by the jail. I pulled up the business accounts on my laptop. Feltry Dynamics had received 2 new contract offers while this drama was unfolding. One from a company in Abu Dhabi, another from a site in Nigeria. Together they were worth $400,000 over the next 18 months. Patricia had tried to steal $40,000 and ended up in jail. Meanwhile, my business was growing exactly as planned. There's one more thing, my attorney said. Derek Collins's creditors have started calling him about his debts. Word is getting around that his wealthy girlfriend turned out to be a criminal defendant. Meaning some of those creditors aren't the patient type. Derek owes money to people who don't go through legal channels for collection. I thought about Derek quitting his job in anticipation of easy money. About Patricia spending stolen funds on gifts for a man who'd seen her as a meal ticket. About both of them planning a future built on money they'd never legally possessed. How long before Patricia gets out? If she can't post bond, she'll sit in jail until the trial. Given the federal charges, that could be 6 months or longer. I looked out at the oil platform, at the steady rhythm of honest work continuing despite personal drama. The sun was setting over the Kuwaiti desert, painting the sky the color of crude oil. Patricia had texted me about being alone and broke while I was working a 12-hour shift. Now she was alone in a jail cell, and Derek was broke with creditors closing in. Sometimes justice arrives faster than expected. The phone call came 6 weeks later while I was reviewing drilling reports. "Ivan, please, you have to help me." Patricia's voice was different, smaller. The arrogance and entitlement had been ground away by weeks in county jail. "Patricia, the prosecutor wants me to plead guilty to federal charges. My public defender says I could go to prison for 2 years. I heard. Derek won't answer my calls. His phone's been disconnected." I wasn't surprised. According to my private investigator, Derek had fled Dallas 2 weeks ago after his creditors started making serious threats about the money he owed. Apparently, promising people you'd pay them back with your girlfriend's divorce settlement doesn't work when your girlfriend turns out to be a federal criminal defendant. "Yvonne, I was wrong. I was stupid. I thought I deserved half of everything you'd earned. You thought you could steal it. It wasn't stealing, we're married. I thought it was community property." "The business accounts were never community property, Patricia. They were corporate assets. You stole household money and left our bills unpaid." The silence stretched for almost a minute. "What do you want from me?" "Nothing. Nothing. I want nothing from you, Patricia. You've already given me everything I need." "I don't understand." I closed my laptop and walked to the window overlooking the oil platform. Men working honest shifts, building something real, creating value through effort and skill. You taught me that protecting what I've built is just as important as building it in the first place. You showed me that some people see other people's success as something they're entitled to take. And you proved that the legal structures I put in place actually work. Ivan, please. I'll do anything. The divorce papers were filed yesterday. You'll get nothing from the marriage except your personal belongings. The house will be sold to pay the debts you created. Your legal fees are your problem. But I have no money, no job. Derek is gone. I have nothing. You have exactly what you gave me, Patricia. Nothing. 3 months later, I was back in Dallas for a single day between contracts. The house had sold quickly, even with the legal complications. After paying off the mortgage and covering the debts Patricia had created, there was nothing left for either of us. Patricia's theft had consumed what little equity we'd built up over 20 years. I drove past Derek's old apartment building. The eviction notice was still taped to the door, sun-faded and torn. According to my attorney, Derek had left town owing 3 months' rent and several $1,000s to various creditors. His gym friends told people he'd gone back to live with his parents in Oklahoma. Patricia had been sentenced to 18 months in federal prison, followed by 2 years of probation and full restitution for the theft charges. Her sister had stopped taking her calls after Patricia asked for money to hire a better attorney. I stopped by my attorney's office to sign the final divorce papers. "She'll be out in about 14 months with good behavior," he told me, "but she'll have a federal conviction on her record and significant debt from legal fees." "What about Derek?" "Still missing. His creditors have hired collection agencies, but good luck finding someone who doesn't want to be found." I signed my name on the divorce decree and felt nothing except relief. That evening, I flew back to Kuwait for another 8-month rotation. Veltri Dynamics had secured 3 new contracts worth over $500,000. The business was growing faster than I'd ever imagined. Patricia had tried to steal $40,000 and ended up losing everything. Derek had quit his job for money that never existed and ended up fleeing creditors who weren't going to forget what he owed them. Both had discovered that building a future on lies and theft leads to consequences that compound faster than the lies themselves. Patricia faced the full weight of federal prosecution, serving 18 months in prison while Derek disappeared into hiding from creditors who had little patience for his promises of easy money that never materialized. Her conviction destroyed any chance of meaningful employment, while her betrayal cost her the support of family members who had grown disgusted with her choices and their consequences for everyone involved. Derek's flight from Dallas meant abandoning his entire life to avoid the people he owed money to, leaving behind not just debts, but any possibility of rebuilding his reputation in a city where everyone knew he had planned to live off stolen money from a woman who couldn't deliver on her promises. I learned that business success requires protecting your assets not just from market risks, but from people who see your achievements as their entitlement, and that sometimes the most important investment you can make is in legal structures that preserve what you've built through hard work and dedication.